So how many of you are ready to saturate your Friday and your weekend with some motivational success stories? I know that I surely am. And I just want to thank all of my clients, people who are watching the videos as well, who are submitting your success stories to me. I'm getting absolutely inundated. It's been one of my manifestations. I always get a lot of successes. I get a lot of successes. My clients have been inundating me with their success. I'm kind of contemplating adding another day of the week to catch up with some of these, but we'll see how we go. We'll keep it to Friday, your wish fulfilled Fridays. That's what we're going to call it. And just want to thank you all for joining me today. I'm Athena Raven, my mental health and manifestation life coach, here to empower and inspire you on your manifestation journey. So please do like, subscribe. Let's help boost this channel, get the content out there to a wider audience who might be needing that help and support. I love and appreciate all of you for being here. Click that bell icon as well so you never miss a beat. I'm trying to post out on Mondays and Fridays, although I might change the Mondays to Tuesday. Haven't decided yet, but so far Mondays and Fridays, to help assist you on your journey to realizing all of your goals. Today's success story is from a wonderful client of mine who took the time to go into a lot of details. I know that I always badger my clients to go into a lot of details with their success so that you can understand this unfolding, and also see if it resonates with you. Are you going through the same? Have a look at what they did, how did they cope with it, and apply it to your own situation, or just use it for motivation to see that things do change. People do change. Just because your specific person started off saying they don't love you, or they're avoidant, or they're disinterested, they can and they do a complete 180. It's all dependent on you and the state you occupy. And this situation with my client was no different. He was dealing with addiction. He was dealing with a specific person who he absolutely adored, but hot and cold behavior, a third party situation, someone who was avoidant. The SP was avoidant personality, which I hear a lot of. These labels are everywhere: anxious avoidance, anxious attachments, and all of that. And I'll do a video regarding that as well, because a few people keep asking me about what do we do in this sort of circumstance. But he was dealing with an avoidant personality. Just seemed to be going nowhere, seemed to be hitting a dead end, ended up getting ghosted and all the rest of it. So let's see what happened. How did we work together to turn this all around? He's gone into a lot of detail. And what I've done is, as well, although my previous success stories, because they came in some cases over the last couple of months, they're not going to have this format. But this success story came in more recently, and I'm using him as my guinea pig, because what I've done with his success story is I have given him a bit of a questionnaire to answer as well. And the questionnaire contains a lot of questions that, a lot of you guys are curious about. What do you do on the days that you are missing your SP, for example? What techniques did you use to manifest this desire in? How did you deal with it? What did you get on with in your journey? So I've asked him like a few questions regarding that at the end. Maybe some of you have some other questions that you would like me to add to this questionnaire, and I can submit it to my clients going forward. I don't want to submit loads of questions to them. But anything to help give some more clarity to some of these success stories. Like I say, not all the success stories will have this format, but I'm testing it out with him, and he very, very kindly took the time to answer those questions. So let me know what you think in the comments if this was helpful. So without further ado, sit back, relax, get that cup of tea or coffee, and we'll start off. His story starts off with, he said, my specific person was a sweet girl I met through a dating app back in 2021. I remember being totally taken in by her energy at the time. We would message each other and call every day, and the energy was palpable between us back then. We both had the same keen interests in sports, music, and gaming, which was surprising to me. I've never met a girl who was basically exactly like me in so many ways. I think the main reason I was so drawn to her was not only through the obvious, i.e. looks and interests, but her personality and humour resembled that of my best friend who I lost a few years back to a terrible car accident. I don't think I've ever been the same since then, as I'm not a sociable guy, and I buried my head in depression for the longest time. I used drinking and gaming as my escape for many years after that, and I fell into a bit of a pit. But a friend of mine recommended I get myself out there. on the dating apps. And so when I did, my SP was one of the first people I started talking to. I was instantly taken in, and for the first time in the longest time, I felt like I was finding myself. However, this relationship was not without its issues. As the months progressed, I tried to get her to meet with me on numerous occasions, but she was extremely avoidant, blaming it on her social anxiety and past experiences. She would, as a result, start to display hot and cold behavior, which left me uncertain and confused. I wanted to give her the time and space to get to know me and trust me, but as the months continued with hot and cold and on-and-off behavior, it was getting harder to cope with. Hard to not keep assuming the worst. The more time went on, the more it would bring me down when a suggestion of meeting would be postponed or met with a flimsy excuse. As we were talking one night, she told me how her ex was still somewhat in the picture. They broke up initially because he had cheated on her numerous times. However, I had no idea how much they were still in communication. In fact, it really threw me off to know he had been over to see her a few times since we started talking. I argued with her about it, telling her I needed to know where I stood and telling her if she wanted to speak to me, she had to make a decision as to what she wanted. I realized now my demands were coming from a place of insecurity, as I was convinced they would get back together. I found myself so fixated on him, making comparisons to myself and ignoring the fact that he had treated her so poorly. I think my actions were determined by the fact that I had been in this situation before with an ex who completely used me and dumped me when she met someone else. And this seemed to be a pattern of being replaced for someone else, being left and disposed of. She must have felt pretty pressured by this argument and decided to distance herself completely from me. She tried to friend zone me, although before this she had told me that she felt like she was falling for me. Contact became less and less, and hot and cold behavior became more and more cold, distant, and disinterested. I was in a bad state, feeling really insecure and dejected again, and drinking more than before. I felt hopeful when I stumbled across how I could manifest a specific person, and I gorged on so many videos at this time, as I'm sure we all do. I even took up coaching with some of the bigger channels and took on board what they told me, trying to work on self-concept and saturate myself with affirmations. This was okay in the beginning, but as the months went by with no effect, I found myself getting impatient and more desperate, not to mention obsessively thinking about my SP. The days were saturated with manifesting her and stuck in routines of affirmations or meditations. Some coaches accuse you of being lazy if you don't keep affirming, but I certainly wasn't. I tried my best and was at it all the time, especially when negative thoughts came in, but I was fighting myself and feeling stressed out with no result. Naturally, with all the effort I was putting in, I was compelled to check her social media for some proof that my efforts were not in vain. It made my heart ache to see that she was online but not messaging me. I would obsess about who she was messaging instead. Was it the ex? Was it someone else? And it didn't do my anxiety any good, yet I couldn't stop myself. When anxiety got the better of me, I would reach out to her, expecting that she might reply, and I would start to see that my efforts were paying off, but of course, I would get nothing in return. She went from very little contact to now completely ghosting me. I was feeling worse, more stuck, more trapped in a loop of, it's not working, what else can I do? I continued to affirm and persist and was determined to turn this around. I kept on, trying my hardest to believe, but getting more stressed out in the process and more obsessive about this manifestation. As the months rolled by, I saw no movement and I still felt too attached to this desire. How the hell am I supposed to let go feeling like this? It was infuriating me. I wanted to give up, but I was afraid to. I didn't want all my hard work to be in vain, and I knew I loved her and that this was too special to let go, but I couldn't get to that state of detachment and peace that people talk about. I just couldn't. I couldn't stop the affirming and the techniques, because then what? What else am I supposed to do to get her back? I decided something had to give, and this was not the life that I wanted anymore. There has to be an easier way that doesn't cause so much despair and exhaustion. Around this time, I discovered Athena, and I felt this inner encouragement to connect with her. I can see now with all clarity that it was indeed my bridge to success, bridge to sobriety, bridge to my SP. She could see immediately where I was going wrong. My focus was everywhere it shouldn't have been. On the 3D it shouldn't have been on the 3D circumstances, the past experiences, my SP, and where everything was going wrong with her, as well as obsessing over what was happening with the ex. Athena recommended I drop the affirmations and routines I had in place, which was keeping me in lack in trying for this manifestation to come to be. And instead, we focused on some simple exercises and understanding to shift my mindset. I also realized that I was inconsistent with my imagining, as I would imagine contact and then imagine my SP apologizing for having used me. I obviously harbored some resentment as to how I was dropped by her, and was something that I knew we had to work on in order for me to experience the ideal version of my specific person. But at this time, in my hurt and my anger, I remember being so determined for this apology. I got more focused with feeling out my desired outcome instead. And I think just having a coach to guide me really helped in making me accountable and more focused, so I wouldn't go back to my old destructive ways and thought patterns. What I got from this experience with Athena was different from the other coaching I encountered. Number one, there was a lot less emphasis on techniques to manifest. Everything was kept simple and straightforward, which was a huge burden lifted for me. Number two, she made me feel comfortable and safe during the sessions. And when I went back to my old destructive ways, she managed to turn me towards the right direction. Number three, she gave me clear insight as to how my mind was working and helped me to look back and forgive myself and my past mistakes, enabling me to forgive my SP as a result and to see her in a new light. After all, how could I manifest the ideal version if I was fixated on a negative narrative I had placed? Number four, we worked on understanding the law and the process of imagining in a clear, concise way. I always thought I got this right, but as I said, I was too busy imagining all the little bits in the middle, like the apology or the contact, and not going to my end enough. We healed a lot of my old wounds of insecurity and old patterns around women and relationships with CBT and hypnosis. We had other goals to focus on. Number six. I'm losing track. It's very kind, by the way, taking all this time. Number six, we had other goals to focus on, so I wasn't obsessing over SP. Number seven, we worked on shifting my old limiting beliefs about myself and the current situation so I could apply a new perspective and therefore stick to my new concept of self more freely. So within a few months, I was no longer obsessive over my SP, and I had given up on drinking myself to madness. I became sober, and I'm still to this day no longer associating myself with addiction. I looked at my SP in a new ideal light, and I felt differently about myself, more secure, more stable, more at ease. Approximately 4 months later, my day-to-day life was looking rather different. I was pretty busy with new goals. Work was going great. Gaming was no longer my focus, and my social life was back on, connecting with so many friends I had neglected whilst I was in my depressive phase. I felt indifferent and more healed, more confident and free. Scrolling. Then randomly, as I was getting myself ready to meet a friend, I noticed I received a message from my SP, which totally took me off guard. She seemed a bit off at first, not saying too much, just keeping it simple. I thought perhaps the old, cold version of her was back, but I decided not to apply this meaning and not to judge. As the communication progressed, she was starting to open up. She was curious as to how I was doing and stating how she didn't expect a reply from me, but that she had never stopped thinking about me during this time of silence that we had. She actually apologized for not having been totally transparent with me from the get-go regarding her ex. What was interesting was the fact that when she apologized, something I wanted so adamantly from her, I didn't feel anything. I didn't even notice it until Athena pulled that up to me. I must have truly moved on from that old story, and I was so busy in my new self that I didn't even care that much. Anyway, we talked on and off over the course of a few weeks. She promised she would meet with me at some point if I was willing. She had no contact with her ex for these last few months, but she didn't want to reach out to me until she closed that chapter completely and healed within herself. I felt surprisingly calm and reassured during our reconnection online. There came a time when I would have jumped hoops to get this sort of contact, but this time I felt different. I was so content in myself, I didn't need her anymore. It was the key for me. That was the key for me, realizing I had healed so much that I did not need her to feel good. She was a lot more forward and forthcoming, chasing me, so to speak. She kept asking if I would meet with her. I wasn't playing hard to get, but at the same time, I was not able to meet with her on the days that she had suggested, and I wasn't about to change my schedule for her, which is something I would have felt inclined to do in the past. We then arranged a meeting at a halfway point for us both on a day that worked for us. We actually had a great evening. We went to a local bar and we chatted all night. It felt surreal in some respects. How did I go from nothing to having the girl of my dreams sat next to me, touching my leg and sharing a laugh with me? So surreal, but here it was. That, plus, I was at a bar having soft drinks with no desire for alcohol at all. And he's put in brackets, hypnosis is amazing. The old version of her that was so avoidant and socially anxious seemed to have melted away completely. And honestly, this is the part that surprises me the most. If you knew her as I did, and how anxious and avoidant she was about meeting me in the first place, to now being the one to push for a meet and actually being comfortable in a busy bar setting. Plus, she was so much more affectionate and open than I had ever known. More decisive and flirtatious than I had ever experienced, and better than that, she was sure of what she wanted and she was determined to get it. Goodbye to being hot and cold, and goodbye to being friend-zoned. She was, if anything, almost desperate to have me back in her life. I have never been chased in this way, and it feels amazing, but it also caught me off guard. In fact, she was everything that I wanted, everything that I felt and believed that she could be, everything I had imagined and experienced in my visuals. We have since spent a lot more time together, and recently we made it official after a while of dating and talking. She remains to this day hot, affectionate, doting, reliable, and completely dedicated to me. Although I still have some insecurities I need to work on, I do feel confident in myself and my goals. Athena supported me in self-change to a level where even my friends and family have been commenting on how calm and secure I seem. I just want to let the audience know not to give up and to keep your focus on yourself always. I had to be patient and compassionate with myself, and it was a hell of a road for me, but I don't regret it and I wouldn't change it. I've got my specific person, I've got my life and my confidence back, as well as my friends, and I've got so much more. And then he goes on to the questionnaire. So he said, in answer to your questions, Athena. So the first question was, did you imagine every day? And his response was, I did not imagine my end scene daily. I did as instructed by Athena, which was to do it as and when it felt good to me and then drop it after a while. I often would imagine at night when my mind would wander to destructive thoughts so that I could rest in a better mindset. I also asked him, what did you do when you missed your specific person? And so he said, on the days that I missed her, I would get myself focused on something else. I didn't bring too much attention to my missing her. I would notice it and I would let it run its course, but I would not apply the meaning that missing her was me being stuck in lack and potentially delaying things, which is something I did a lot before coaching. Another question that I asked him was, what worked best for you when it came to shifting your state of being, state of mind. And he said what had worked best for him was the CBT stuff. It felt so good to have alternative perspectives put in my path to challenge my old way of thinking and my old belief system. I also asked him, how did you react when your specific person came in? And he said, when my specific person came in, I was surprised but also relatively relaxed. Happy, of course, but also not reacting the same way that I would have. I guess that's because I had really grown within myself. I also asked him, did you notice time passing? Did you feel like you were waiting? And he said, I didn't feel like I was waiting at all. In the beginning of my journey, I noticed time and I was impatient as hell. But the more we worked together and the fuller my life became, focusing on me and tackling the addictions to drinking or gaming, I felt detached from wanting or waiting for SP. I also asked him, did you get triggered or react to the 3D? And if so, what did you do? And he said, I did have days of being triggered, again, especially in the beginning when I was trying to keep tabs on her social media for evidence of change. When I broke out of the bad habit of checking this, I was less triggered by circumstances and focused more on my imagination and myself. People make the specific person the center of attraction and they place them up on the pedestal, but you need to find other things to make you feel whole again. So I made that my mission. And the final question I asked him was, did you have a structure with your routines and a structure and routine with techniques? And he said, I did in the beginning, and this kept me stuck for the longest time, I felt. I dropped it when you told me to, and everything changed with so much ease. I hope this was helpful and will provide a better insight to others who are going through the same experience. Truly grateful to you, Athena, and thank you. So thank you so much, darling. I really appreciate that. Thank you for being my guinea pig with this new format that I was just testing out. Did you guys find this particularly helpful? It's a little bit different to just getting your average success story. Is there any other questions that you would be curious to know that I could ask my clients or ask the viewers who are also submitting their success stories? Maybe there's something else we're curious about knowing that I could pose to them too. Let's start to see a pattern in these success stories, start to see what people are doing, how it's working, what is the recurring theme here. For him, he was very much attached to this old story, this old version of her, these labels of calling her an avoidant and anxious attachment or social anxiety. And in seeing her this way, of course, was going to just keep her stuck in this way, essentially not coming forward, being indecisive, hot and cold behavior. We had to get him to drop these labels and to start to focus on the ideal version of his specific person that he wanted to experience. And imagine that when she comes back, she is a version that he had not really experienced before. He'd experienced some of that before, but not to this degree. And he'd never experienced being chased and being so doted on. He's extremely happy in his situation. He's done really well as well. Congratulations with the overcoming of addiction, which he managed incredibly well, incredibly fast. It's not an easy thing, but again, it's dropping these labels. What are your labels? What are your I am statements that you are holding as your truth, that you believe about yourself? If it's not serving you, if it's not serving your situation with your SP, then drop them. Take on new beliefs. Challenge the old beliefs if it's too much of a struggle to let go of those old beliefs. And this is why we use modalities of therapy as well to assist when it's sometimes the change is a bit difficult, is a bit too stubborn. But I hope that this was really helpful and motivating to you all. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, I'm sending you all the love. Have a fantastic weekend and I'll see you in the next video.